Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Malaika and I am from Department of BS Chemistry. This is the course of Principles of Chemistry 3 and today I am going to present a topic which is batteries and corrosion. So first of all we need to know that what are batteries. A container consisting of one or more cells in which chemical energy is converted into electrical energy and used as a source of power is called battery. So, by far the most important practical application of galvanic cells is their use in batteries. In multi cell batteries, such as those in automobiles, the individual galvanic cells are linked in series with the anode of each cell connected to the cathode of the adjacent cell. The voltage provided by the battery is the sum of the individual cell voltages. The features required in a battery depend on the application. In general, a commercially successful battery should be compact, lightweight, physically rugged, and inexpensive. Let's look at the several of the most common types of commercial batteries. First, we have lead storage battery. The lead storage battery is perhaps the most familiar of all the galvanic cells because it has been used as a reliable source of power for starting automobiles for nearly a century. A typical 12-volt battery consists of 6 cells connected in series, each cell providing a potential of about 2 volt. The anode, a series of lead grids packed with spongy lead, and the cathode, a second series of grids packed with lead dioxide, dip into the electrolyte and aqueous solution of sulfuric acid. When the cell is discharging, the electrode half reactions and overall reactions are, as you can see that at anode, lead is oxidized to lead sulfate and at cathode, lead dioxide is reduced to lead sulfate. Note that these equations contain HSO4 ion rather than SO4 because SO4 is protonated in strongly acidic solutions. The cell doesn't need to have separate anode and cathode compartments because the oxidizing and reducing agents are both solids that are kept from coming in contact by the presence of insulating spaces between the grids. A lead storage battery typically provides good service for several years, but eventually the spongy lead sulfate deposits on the electrodes turn into hard crystalline forms that can't be converted back to lead and lead dioxide. Then it's no longer possible to recharge the battery and it must be replaced. Because lead is extremely toxic, batteries should be recycled as is mandated by most states. This is a picture explaining the lead storage battery. Now coming towards dry cell batteries. So the dry cell, founded in 1866 by the Frenchman Georges Leclanche, used for many years as a power source for flashlights and portable radios. It consists of a zinc metal can which serves as the anode and an inert graphite rod surrounded by a paste of solid manganese dioxide and carbon black which functions as the cathode. Surrounding the magnesium dioxide containing paste is the electrolyte, a moist paste of ammonium chloride and zinc chloride and starch. A dry cell is not completely dry but gets its name because the electrolyte is a viscous aqueous paste rather than a liquid solution. The electrode reactions, which are rather complicated, can be represented in simplified form by the following equations. At anode, as you can see that zinc is oxidized and at cathode, manganese dioxide is reduced to manganese trioxide. The dry cell is largely of historical interest and has been displaced by the alkaline dry cell, a modified version in which the acidic ammonium chloride electrolyte of the dry cell is replaced by a basic electrolyte, either NaOH or KOH. As in the dry cell, the electrode reactions involve oxidation of zinc and reduction of manganese dioxide, but the oxidation of product is zinc oxide as is appropriate to basic condition. Now, corrosion of the zinc anode is a significant side reaction under acidic conditions because zinc reacts with hydrogen to give Zn plus 2 and H2. Under basic conditions, however, the cell has a longer life because zinc corrodes more slowly. The alkaline cells also produce higher power and a more stable current and voltage because of more efficient ion transport in the alkaline electrolyte. The voltage of an alkaline cell is about 1.5 volt. This is a picture showing a dry cell. Now coming towards nickel cadmium batteries. Nickel cadmium batteries are popular for use in calculators and portable power tools because unlike most other dry cell batteries they are rechargeable. The anode of a nickel cadmium battery is cadmium metal and the cathode is nickel 3 compound. supported on a nickel metal. The electrode reactions are: at anode, cadmium is oxidized, and at cathode, nickel compound is reduced. Nickel cadmium batteries can be recharged hundreds of times because the solid products of the electrode reactions adhere to the surface of the electrodes. This is a picture showing nickel cadmium battery. Now, nickel metal hydride batteries. Because cadmium is an expensive, toxic heavy metal, nickel cadmium batteries have been replaced in many applications by lighter, more environmental friendly nickel metal hydride batteries. It delivers same voltage as a nickel cadmium battery but has about twice the energy density. Energy density is defined as the amount of energy stored per unit mass. Both have same cathode but different anodes. In nickel metal hydride batteries, the anode is a special metal alloy such as lanthanum pentanickel that is capable of absorbing and releasing large amounts of hydrogen at ordinary temperatures and pressures. When the cell is discharging, the electrode and overall reactions can be written as: means at anode metal is oxidized and at cathode nickel compound is reduced. Here the M is representing the hydrogen absorbing metal alloy and hydrogen is denoting to the absorbed hydrogen. Nickel metal hydride batteries are used in a host of consumer electronic products and also in hybrid gas electric automobiles, which are powered by both a gasoline engine and an electric motor. Battery packs consisting of many nickel metal hydride batteries supply energy to the electric motor and also store energy that is captured on braking. When the brakes are applied, the electric motor acts as a generator and recharges the batteries. Some of the car's kinetic energy, which would otherwise be dissipated as heat, is converted to electrical energy, thus reducing the use of gasoline engine and increasing gas mileage. Then we have lithium batteries. These batteries are popular for portable electronic products than nickel based batteries because of their lightweight and high voltage. Lithium batteries use a lithium metal anode and an electrolyte consisting of a lithium salt such as lithium chloride tetraoxide in an organic solvent. Most lithium batteries have a manganese dioxide cathode which can absorb a variable amount of lithium ions into its solid state structure. So reactions are given: at anode, lithium is oxidized, and at cathode, manganese dioxide is reduced. Lithium ions migrate through the electrolyte form from anode to cathode, while electrons move from anode to the cathode through the external circuit. Lithium batteries are used in watches, calculators, and all other small consumer devices. That was all about batteries. Now coming towards the corrosion. So what is basically corrosion? Corrosion is the oxidative deterioration of a metal such as the conversion of iron to rust. Rust is a hydrated iron oxide of approximate composition. Most common and economically destructive form of corrosion is the rusting of iron. Rust is not a direct product of the reaction between iron and oxygen but arises through complex electrochemical processes. Iron will not rust in dry air, air-free water. It rusts in ionic solutions at a low pH. Now coming towards this picture, so here you can see that the surface of the iron and a droplet of surface water constitute a tiny galvanic cell in which different regions of the surface act as anode and cathode, while the electrolyte is the aqueous phase. Now because the surface of metal is irregular and the composition is non-homogeneous, so iron is oxidized more in some regions, mean the anodic regions. So as you can see that at anode, iron is oxidized and at cathode, water is reduced to OH. Now here are some methods to prevent the corrosion. First one is barrier protection. In the method, a barrier film is introduced between iron surface and atmospheric air. The film is obtained by painting or varnishing. Second method is sacrificial protection. The metallic iron is covered by a layer of more reactive metal such as zinc. The active metal loses electrons in preference of iron, thus protecting from rusting and corrosion. Third one is electrical protection. The metallic iron is connected with more active metals like magnesium or zinc. The active metal has lower reduction potential than iron and will lose electron in preference to iron. This method is used for protecting iron articles which are in contact with water. And the fourth one is anti-rust solution. To retard the corrosion of iron, certain anti-rust solutions are used. Example, alkaline phosphate and alkaline chromates. That's all from my side. Thank you.